Today's episode is with Mr. Arun Maira, who is a former member of the Planning Commission, Executive Director of Tata Motors, and also been a Chairman of BCG. He is here to share his experiences and contribute to creation of Viksit Bharat, Blissful Bharat. Welcome to this podcast to share your experiences for the benefit of larger masses, and especially your experience both in industry and as a consultant and then in the public service. All of this wide perspective that you have, not many people have the opportunity to do so. You would like to talk about your birth and some initial part of the early part of your life.
That's what
that will be useful.
That's it. Right. We're leading backwards into that. I was a refugee. My parents were refugees from Pakistan, and he had to abandon my father. He was quite young, 28 or 29, and already built a very successful entrepreneurial manufacturing enterprise in Lahore. Was doing extremely well at that young age. Large factory, huge house with 2 cars, a Tonga to take my wife into the bazaars of Lahore, fruit trees all over, and then came suddenly the partition. And there was, if you do recollect, a question till the very end whether Lahore would be in India and Gurdaspur would be in Pakistan. Pathankot, Gurdaspur. And until a week before, it wasn't announced which side Lahore would be. And then, that's all interesting history. One goes back to why Radcliffe gave Lahore to Pakistan and left Gurdaspur and Pathankot, which is a Muslim majority actually, with India. It's linked to now the strategic problems we're having with Pakistan and Kashmir. But that's the background like. But the point is, my father was startled because Sardar Patel had met the entrepreneurs in Lahore, business people, Hindus, and assured them that considering the population, it's most likely that you'll be okay where you are. So my father hadn't moved. And it was just the week before, when this announcement came, before partition, that he had to abandon everything. Fortunately, my mother was expecting her third little baby, and so she with me, and I was 4, and my younger brother 2, and expecting the baby, was in Shimla with an uncle on the safer side. So in a good climate, she could deliver her third child. But he was there, and he was able to, with the help of the Indian Air Force, fly out of Pakistan in his shorts and things, and that's how he came across. And so we started life from scratch in this country. And the nice thing I would say about my parents, both of them, they had no problems with any Muslims. In our house in Lahore, there were Muslim friends who lived because their son coming from Peshawar needed to go to a college. So the son lived with us as a older boy in the house and sent, and we're good friends. And on this side too, there was no rancor like with the Muslims as such. There was this whole political division. And my father got a job in the Rampur engineering company. The Nawab of Rampur had a big engineering manufacturing factory, which wasn't being run very well. In any case, with the partition, maybe his general manager was a Muslim and decided to go to Pakistan. So he needed someone to run his factory. So he employed my father. So my background, as you talk about, was at a time when I felt this was my country and we had to build this country. Yes, along with the Muslims who were around, we had to build this country. So I learned a lot of lessons, both from my mother and my father, about from my father about hard times, get things done, make them happen, and be kind at the same time to the people that you work with. And my mother was even more so. So if I could say about values, this value of to get on with it and don't complain about the world. Yes, whatever the world has given you, you start with it. And whatever you do, you will have to work with other human beings. Just be compassionate because they may have even greater difficulties than you have. So that's that. I went to St. Stephen's College in Delhi. Why I went to St. Stephen's College in Delhi was because in school, the senior Cambridge exam, which is used to be given to all the best schools in India, because we all of them got a paper sent to, to Cambridge. So I went to a good boarding school on a scholarship in Sanawar and did well. And in the national level exams in senior Cambridge, I came sort of fourth or fifth in the country. Hmm? And people were competing from all the schools of India. I didn't know what I needed to do in life. Country was changing. All that my father and mother knew was that I wanted to serve the country. They would also want me to serve the country. And the only thing that was apparently for service to the country was the civil service. So they were very keen that I someday join the civil service. Of course, you can't join the civil service after school. So they said, what should you do in college? And came around that the most difficult course to be admitted to in India is the physics honors course in St. Stephen's College in Delhi. St. Stephen's was considered those days sort of the acme and the most difficult college to get into. And most of the people who got admitted to St. Stephen's, they did economics and history or whatever, they joined the civil services. So it is no surprise that if you look back at that era, many people who then have been heads of our government and services have been former St. Stephen's, some of them from Doon School, some from Sana, and so they said, okay, you go to St. Stephen's College and get admitted into physics honors. Now, what the connection between physics honors and the IS was, I mean, wasn't very clear, but that's how one thing leads to another. So I joined physics honors in St. Stephen's College. Now, this is going to get a bit long, Janak, because the point there was that in those days, business wasn't admired in the country. No young person wanted to work in business if he thought he was worth anything. People did join business. The managing agency houses in Calcutta and Chennai or Madras as it was called, Bangalore hardly had any, in Bombay of course. And they had the British type jobs. You got a very fancy salary for doing what? Tea tasters. Your job was to come to the office in Calcutta, little samples of tea, you tasted them, spat out, then had lunch in the nice room, and then slept a while, and you had membership of 3 clubs, and your salary was about 5 times what you would get in anywhere else, 10 times what you get in the civil service. So like that, when I was in college, these jobs are available, and I had no intention to get to any of these, because I wanted to join the civil service. Unfortunately for me, I did the physics course, and I thought I would then be able to study history in my master's, because in the IS you can't take only science courses. There were 2 science courses, science and maths, and 3 others had to be either history or economics. History, as the people told me, is the easiest subject to study, and most people who got into the IS were either economics or history. And so after you finished your physics, and you're young, and I still had 2 more years after my master's to still be eligible age-wise, you study history on your own. Now I'm sitting Vela, reading history from my French textbooks who had already got into the IAS. They left with me. And the principal of the college said to me that, look, invitation has come for you to the college. Please send the best person. One was to Calcutta, to J. Thomas. Very exclusive. They would probably take one person in 10 years or 6 years, right sort of family, and give him the job I was describing to you, which included a fancy salary plus a furlough home leave for Indians to go to England every 5 years. And similarly, there was Binny and Company in Chennai, and I'd never been to Chennai, never been to Calcutta. And Tata's also made a request that they had started the Tata Administrative Service. Until that time, they had been taking people from Oxford and Cambridge. Indians would go on to Oxford and Cambridge. But they thought, why not take directly Indians who haven't got the privilege of going there, but are good here. So they asked the principal St. Stephen's, is there anyone you would recommend who's worthy of working with Tatas? So he told me, he says, look, you can have a Bharat Yatra now. Here are 3 interviews you can go to. One is to Calcutta, the other to Madras, and the third to Tatas. I went to the one in Calcutta and I described what it was like. I mean, at the end of it, when it's nice discussion with these 2 guys, and they gave me the offer. I finished like after lunch, and they said, "Well, here's your offer." I opened it, and I was shocked at the salary, and it said, "Your every 5 years you'll have 6 months home leave." So I said, "Home leave for where?" They said, it was obvious. I mean, they were all Indians. Home leave, you got to go back to somewhere in England. But then I asked, "What will my work be?" They said, "Oh, we forgot to ask you. Do you drink tea?" Fortunately, I hadn't started drinking tea at that age. I said, no, thank goodness. Well, let's take you and show you. But we already shown you the work. You saw the same guy, he would in white coat, had walked me through the tea tasting thing. He said, that's all you're required to do. Taste and spit and write your notes. Huh? I said, that's the work I'm going to be doing. I mean, I want to do something with my life, not to take in tea and spit it out and then play polo in the afternoon and so. So that was not for me. Tata's was so different, you see. They had a 3-day with 5 or 6 of us. The rest of them were from Cambridge and Oxford, and I was from India. I mean, out of college out of India. And the questions they asked us, what are you interested in? So I said physics. Yeah, we know that you've done very well there. What else are you interested in? I said, actually, I'm interested in art and painting, which I used to have as a hobby. What else? So I said something else. Then it's a panel of senior directors. Amongst them, someone knew a little bit about that subject. They'd start engaging you in a conversation about what you liked and what you knew. And like about the art, I'm telling you as an example. So said, okay, when did you get to, the interest in modern art? So I said, well, I had a book at home which my mother had left with Picasso's pictures, and so how he got to think of these crazy things. And then it's simple, actually, Picasso's things. So she left some material and I started drawing. And have you made any yourself? I said, yes, I have, and they're hanging in our house and so on. Good, good. So they were inquiring about how did I learn to learn something that interested me. And similarly, they were asking others about whatever they said. One fellow said that actually he's a man, but Dave, that he liked Kathakali dancing. And that was okay with them. So how do you get to it? How do you learn it? What's proficiency you have? At the end of these interviews, naturally, I mean, they do give a chance as good interviewers to say, have you any questions to ask us? So here were 3 or 4 of us, 5 of us together. So I just asked this question. I said, you never asked us anything about how we'd manage an organization. And they smiled and said, well, none of you have ever done it. It'd be so stupid for us to ask you how to manage an organization. We want to know how well you learn. That if you care about something, would you learn to do it very well? And that's what we want. We want the best learners who have a passion to be even better and to make the world even better. With these words, we have a desire to get learners with a passion to make themselves better and to make the world even better. That's what we've been looking for. Now, this really stumped me. Wow. So then they asked me that, so what do you want to do in life? Now, they knew I was going to sit for the IAS exam because the principal had said so. That, I'm sending him, he's my best, but he doesn't want to work with industry because he thinks industry is all about making money for yourself. But anyway, so they said, I knew they knew that, so that would be a stupid answer to give. So I said, maybe spontaneously, I want to serve the country. And Mr. J.J. Bhabha smiled at me and said, Maira, I think you have the impression that people who build industry don't serve the country. Because we think we also serve the country. And he told the story of how Jamshedji Tata had, in spite of British resistance and obstructions, built the Tata Steel and started the hydroelectric and the textile mills in the middle of India, so Indian cotton could be processed by Indians and produced into cloth and so on. It was very taking on. Yeah, that's another way I could serve the country. But clearly, this business house was not like the other business houses. I just prayed then that they would give me a job. I wanted to serve the country, and I said, these are the sort of people who really are building the country. Not like maybe an ISCAP who supervises and used to bully my father when he went for his permissions for his new little factory. It's very impressive, and I'd like to be in that power. But these guys were actually doing something. They were building something. So that's how I got to Tata's. And that's led to, when I joined Tata's in the TAS, I was posted in the office of J.R.D. Tata in headquarters, Tata Steel, and right next to him, and young chap, many people around, few people around. And I was just curious because, J.R.D. would have big questions. So his question at the time was that Tata Steel had not been nationalized, though Tata's had recommended that the steel industry should be national, because the workers of Tata's, they rebelled and said, if the intention of building industry is to build a good industry and in a way which is kind to the public, you can't beat Tata's. So telling the government, you learn from Tata's, you can have all the rest, and they nationalize Indian Iron and Steel and they built Hindustan Steel, but leave Tata's alone. But licensing system. All the new companies as well as Tata's were given licenses to how much they could produce. And there was a logic to it. Since we needed new technology in the industry, steel industry, new equipment and a lot of foreign exchange would be required. So when Tata's has got very old equipment, right, and no space to put in the much bigger blast furnaces in thing, it wasn't the logical place to build a new large steel industry. So those sites were the new sites in Rourkela, Durgapur and Bhilai, more land and Russian equipment and foreign exchange given to them. But Tata said, if you're going to just leave us where we are at 1 million tons, what is the life of the people here? They want to also do. So Tata was allowed to go to 2 million tons. But it's 2 million tons with old equipment as large part of it. Others have got 5 million ton brand new equipment. So in competitiveness within India, Tata would never be able to succeed against those companies because in large scale, low cost for a commodity. So this was the question. So I'm sitting in J.R.D. Tata's office and a curious sort of guy, and I'm reading steel journals which come to his office and just looking for what's happening in the rest of the world. And I realized that there's a big demand for high strength, low alloy steels in small quantities. Because these are the special steels that you put into bearings and you put into things, not the big sheet steels and the beams. And to produce those steels, you need a combination of two things: small equipment and skilled people. So I said, this is natural. Tata's is now the so-called handicap that we have is actually our asset. We have small equipment and we were the most seasoned people. So if they have an aspiration that we will show the world that Tata's can produce, India can produce those higher quality things, which otherwise they think India will produce the basic steels and keep importing the higher ones. J.R.D. Tata loved this idea. He said, this is what we needed, is a spark to tell us strategically is the right thing to do, or hum karke dikhayenge. So he liked it. Meanwhile, he gave Sumant Moolgaokar charge of Tata Steel, because he says these Tata Steel chaps are still talking like old Tata Steel chaps and complaining that why don't you get us a larger license from government. He said, reality is the reality. Why don't you get on within the constraints that you have? I'm going to get Sumant Moolgaokar, who was building up Telco, Tata Motors later. Great, again, entrepreneur and builder, you see. Given nothing, I will build it. He said he's also now going to be the vice chairman of this company. So J.R.D. was chairman of both the large companies, and Sumant Moolgaokar was vice chairman of both. Now I'm sitting in the office of J.R.D. Tata. Sumant Moolgaokar has an office with Tata Motors 2 floors below. And since now, he has been asked to look after both Tata Steel as well as that. He tells J.R.D. Tata, who was going to appoint me his executive assistant, he says, I'm making Maira my executive assistant where he can do some real work and build some real things, unlike you, Jay, who are just presiding over things. They were good friends. And this is said in my presence. And Jay, of course, with a good humor said, well, Myra, I would have loved to have you, but I think Sumant is right. You better go rub your nose on the shop floors and learn. He's a great teacher and a great master. So I ended up with Telco when he started getting this, when we got the land for building the factory in Pune, so that we could have a second factory for Telco outside Jamshedpur. The question was, where are the people going to come from? All the equipment can be imported and so on. Where are the people going to come? So that's why he turned to me. He said, we need learners. We need young people who have the passion to build something. All my professional HR people said, salary itni deni padegi. In India, there aren't any experienced people anyway. Very hard. He said, but karna to hai. We have to do it. You seem to know what that spirit is. You go around this country to IITs or wherever and find the very best Indians who want to build India. So I was transferred then to Pune, that these young Indians are joining. All of them never done something before, neither I. Build India, build an industry.